The holographic projection flickered, casting ghostly shadows across the briefing room's steel-gray walls. Admiral Thompson's finger traced the impossible geometries of the cosmic fortress, a structure that defied every known principle of engineering and defensive design. Humanity had always been the underdog. When first contacted by the Galactic Confederation, Earth was viewed as a backwater planet of primitive beings. Other species looked down on humans with a mixture of pity and condescension. Their technology was considered crude, their political systems fractured, their military capabilities laughable compared to the millennia-old civilizations that dominated interstellar space. But something fundamental had changed in the last 50 years. The room held 20 of Earth's most critical strategic minds. Military commanders, quantum physicists, xenopsychologists, and artificial intelligence experts sat in tense silence. Each understood the magnitude of the challenge before them. The Vex Citadel is more than a fortress, Thompson continued, his augmented eyes zooming into microscopic details of the structure. Holographic data streams danced around the projection, revealing layers of computational complexity that seemed to breathe with alien intelligence. It's a computational enigma that has consumed the resources and hopes of 37 advanced civilizations. Dr. Rebecca Lindholm, Earth's leading xenarchitectural expert, leaned forward. Her prosthetic arm, a marvel of human bioengineering, reflected the Citadel's crystalline surface. Every previous attempt followed a similar pattern. Direct assault, technological bombardment, infiltration attempts. Each method was systematically dismantled within moments of engagement. The Citadel existed in a region of space known as the quantum nexus, a region where traditional laws of physics became more suggestion than absolute rule. Its defensive capabilities went beyond mere technological superiority. The structure seemed to anticipate attacks before they were even conceived, neutralizing threats with a precision that bordered on prescience. "We're not just talking about shields or defensive weaponry," Thompson explained. "This structure can predict computational pathways, neutralize technological intrusions at the quantum level, and deconstruct invasion strategies faster than most species can formulate them." A series of holographic recordings began to play. Ships from various civilizations, their designs ranging from crystalline elegance to biomechanical complexity, approached the Citadel. Each encounter ended identically, total and complete annihilation. Not a single piece of wreckage remained. It was as if the attacking vessels simply ceased to exist. The Krull civilization, who originally constructed the Citadel, had long since vanished. No records existed of their ultimate fate. The fortress remained, a cosmic sentinel guarding unknown secrets, responding to any approach with absolute, instantaneous destruction. "Why us?" asked Colonel Elena Rodriguez, her voice cutting through the technical discussions. She was not a scientist or a traditional military strategist. She was a problem solver, someone who saw challenges as intricate puzzles waiting to be understood. Admiral Thompson met her gaze. "Because humans do something no other species does. We don't just analyze problems. We reimagine them entirely." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the subtext. Humanity's greatest strength had never been raw technological power or military might. It was adaptability. The capacity to look at impossible challenges and find solutions that defied conventional thinking. Dr. Michael Davis, a quantum systems expert with wild hair and eyes that seemed to see multiple dimensions simultaneously, spoke up. "The Citadel's defensive systems operate on predictive algorithms. They neutralize threats by calculating potential invasion strategies before they're executed. But those calculations are based on established technological paradigms. And humans are fundamentally unpredictable." Rodriguez completed his thought. The implications hung in the air. This wasn't just a military mission. It was a test of human potential, a challenge that would either cement humanity's place in the galactic community or confirm every negative perception about their species. The holographic Citadel continued to rotate, its impossible geometries shifting and realigning. A cosmic puzzle waiting to be solved. "We have 6 months," Thompson announced. 6 months to develop an approach that can breach the most advanced defensive system in known galactic history. No one in the room saw this as an impossible task. They saw it as an interesting problem. And humanity loved interesting problems. The recruitment process was anything but standard. While most military operations demanded uniformity, Colonel Elena Rodriguez understood that breaking the unbreakable required people who didn't fit into any standard mold. Jack Harper arrived first, sliding into the secure briefing room with the casual confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime dancing between legal and illegal boundaries. His cybernetic eye, a marvel of human augmentation technology, continually scanned the room, processing information at speeds that would make most computational systems look primitive. A former corporate systems infiltrator, Harper had built a reputation for finding vulnerabilities in supposedly impenetrable networks. His file was a paradox of brilliant achievements and disciplinary records. Military intelligence, private sector innovations, underground technological networks. He had navigated them all with a unique blend of technical genius and psychological manipulation. Lieutenant Aisha Okoro was his direct opposite. Where Harper moved with calculated looseness, Okoro embodied precision. Her military record was immaculate, top of her class in strategic combat, multiple commendations for unconventional problem-solving, and a doctoral degree in sino-strategic warfare. Her parents had been diplomats. Her childhood spent navigating complex international negotiations. She understood systems, political, technological, psychological, in a way few humans could. Dr. Michael Davis arrived last, looking more like a surfer who had accidentally wandered into a high-security military facility than a quantum physicist. His laptop bag was covered in stickers from various scientific conferences, comic book conventions, and what appeared to be a local coffee shop in Berkeley. "Sorry I'm late," Davis said, not sounding sorry at all. "Got caught up solving a particularly interesting quantum entanglement problem." Rodriguez studied her team. They looked nothing like a traditional military strike force. They looked like a group of misfits who might accidentally save the world or burn it down trying. "We're not here to follow standard protocols," Rodriguez began. The room's security systems engaged, creating a quantum-encrypted bubble that would prevent any external surveillance. "We're here to do something no one believes is possible." Harper's cybernetic eye flickered. Data streams only he could see scrolled across his visual interface. The Vex Citadel isn't just a defensive structure. It's a computational ecosystem that has neutralized 37 different invasion attempts. Okoro spread out a series of holographic displays. Each showed a different civilization's failed approach. Technological powerhouses reduced to cosmic dust within moments of engaging the Citadel's defenses. Traditional military thinking assumes a linear approach to conflict: attack, defend, counterattack. The Citadel operates on a multidimensional computational logic that anticipates and neutralizes threats before they fully materialize. Davis pulled up a series of complex quantum algorithms. To an untrained eye, they looked like mathematical poetry: intricate, beautiful, incomprehensible. What if we're asking the wrong questions? Every civilization has tried to breach or destroy the Citadel. But what if the solution isn't about overcoming its defenses, but understanding its fundamental computational logic? The team represented different approaches to the same complex problem. Harper saw systems as puzzles to be manipulated. Okoro viewed them as strategic challenges to be strategically dismantled. Davis saw them as mathematical mysteries waiting to be understood. And Rodriguez? She saw potential. "We have 6 months," she reminded them. 6 months to develop an approach that can penetrate a defensive system that has defeated civilizations with technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. No one seemed daunted. If anything, they looked excited. Harper grinned, a look that suggested he was already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. "Sounds like an interesting problem." Okoro's tactical display began mapping potential approach vectors, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Complex strategic models began to emerge, not just military strategies, but psychological warfare techniques that treated the Citadel less like a fortress and more like a complex adaptive system. Davis was already scribbling quantum equations, muttering to himself about computational paradigms and predictive modeling. Rodriguez watched her team. Individually, they were brilliant. Together, they were something else entirely. A living, breathing system of human innovation that didn't just solve problems, they reimagined what was possible. The impossible mission was about to get very interesting. The research facility occupied a massive underground complex beneath the Atacama Desert. Quantum shielded and completely isolated from external communications, it was humanity's most secure research environment. Banks of quantum computers hummed with an almost living intensity, processing information at speeds that would have been impossible just a decade earlier. Dr. Michael Davis stood before a massive holographic display, surrounded by complex mathematical models that seemed to dance and breathe. His fingers moved through the air, manipulating quantum equations like an artist reshaping clay. Behind him, Lieutenant Aisha Okoro and Jack Harper studied the emerging patterns with intense concentration. "It's not random," Davis muttered, more to himself than to his teammates. "Every defensive response follows a pattern. Not a linear pattern, but a complex adaptive one." Harper's cybernetic eye zoomed in on microscopic variations in the computational models. Adaptive systems always have vulnerabilities. They're designed to learn, which means they're fundamentally based on predictive models. Okoro's tactical overlay began to map these variations. Where traditional military analysis would see impenetrable defenses, she saw a living, breathing computational ecosystem. "The Citadel doesn't just defend," she explained. "It anticipates. But anticipation requires prediction, and prediction requires assumptions." Davis pulled up a series of failed invasion attempts. Each civilization had approached the Citadel with increasing technological sophistication. The Zorn Collective had used quantum entanglement weapons. The Mira Federation deployed entire fleets of self-replicating nanite swarms. The Chronic Empire had attempted to use psychic interference fields. Each attempt ended the same way: total and complete annihilation. "Look at the response times," Davis said, highlighting microscopic temporal variations. "The Citadel's defensive system doesn't just react. It predicts potential threats across multiple computational dimensions." Harper leaned in, his augmented eye scanning the data. "Prediction isn't perfection. Every predictive model has blind spots." The team had been working for weeks, analyzing every scrap of data from previous encounters. Most research teams would have been driven mad by the seemingly impossible task. But this team saw it differently. This wasn't a wall to be breached. It was a puzzle to be understood. Dr. Rebecca Lindholm joined them, bringing a fresh perspective from architectural research. Her prosthetic arm, a marvel of human bioengineering, interfaced directly with the research systems, adding another layer of computational analysis. "The Citadel's defensive systems operate on a principle of total information control," Lindholm explained. "But information control requires categorization, and categorization implies limitation." Davis's eyes lit up. "Exactly. Every computational system, no matter how advanced, requires a framework of understanding. The more complex the system, the more rigid its fundamental assumptions become." They began to construct a radical approach. Instead of trying to overcome the Citadel's defenses, they would introduce computational scenarios that existed outside of its predictive models. Quantum-entangled probes designed to create information paradoxes, holographic invasion simulations that deliberately contained logical inconsistencies. "We're not fighting the system," Okoro said, her tactical displays showing increasingly complex computational models. "We're teaching it to see differently." Harper pulled up a series of historical examples of human problem-solving. The development of powered flight, the decryption of seemingly unbreakable codes, the solution to previously unsolvable mathematical proofs. "Humans have always excelled at breaking established paradigms," he noted. The research facility became a hive of controlled chaos. Quantum computers processed millions of potential scenarios. Holographic displays showed computational models that seemed to breathe and shift with living complexity. Colonel Rodriguez watched from a secure observation room. To an outsider, it might have looked like scientific madness. But she saw something else. She saw potential. She saw the unique human capacity to look at an impossible problem and see not a wall, but a challenge waiting to be reimagined. As the day drew to a close, Davis looked up from his calculations, a wild smile spreading across his face. "We're not just going to breach the Citadel," he said. "We're going to make it understand us." The impossible mission was taking shape. The first phase of their plan looked like pure madness. Jack Harper stood before a massive computational array, his cybernetic eye flickering with complex data streams. Around him, a team of communication specialists, quantum engineers, and xenolinguistic experts worked with a combination of mathematical precision and creative chaos. "We're not sending a message," Harper explained to Colonel Rodriguez. "We're creating a cognitive disruption pattern." The strategy defied every traditional approach to communication or invasion. Most species approached conflict with clear objectives: destroy, conquer, defend. Humanity was doing something entirely different. They were going to confuse the Citadel into revealing its fundamental computational vulnerabilities. Quantum entangled communication probes began broadcasting a series of deliberately constructed information patterns. To any conventional scanning system, the signals would appear as complete nonsense. Mathematical equations that simultaneously solved and contradicted themselves. Linguistic structures that existed in multiple grammatical states at once. Computational models that defied standard logic trees. Dr. Michael Davis had spent weeks developing these information payloads. Each was a carefully crafted cognitive puzzle, designed to trigger multiple, simultaneous threat responses within the Citadel's defensive network. "Think of it like a cognitive immune system," Davis explained during a briefing. "When an organism encounters something it can't categorize, it either adapts or breaks down. We're forcing the Citadel's defensive systems to encounter information it cannot process using its existing computational framework." Lieutenant Aisha Okoro mapped the potential response vectors. Her tactical displays showed complex probability models, each line representing potential computational pathways the Citadel might take in response to their intrusion. The first wave of probes launched silently. No traditional weapons, no conventional attack strategies. Just pure, concentrated information designed to create computational confusion. Dr. Rebecca Lindholm monitored the initial responses. Her prosthetic arm interfaced directly with the research systems, processing incoming data at speeds that would have been impossible just a decade earlier. "The defensive systems are attempting to categorize the incoming information," she reported. "But they can't. It's like trying to fit quantum mechanics into classical Newtonian physics." Harper grinned. "Exactly the point." The psychological warfare went beyond simple information disruption. They were challenging the very fundamental assumptions of the Citadel's defensive computational model. Each probe carried multiple layers of intentional cognitive dissonance, mathematical problems that existed in multiple solution states, linguistic structures that defied traditional grammatical rules, computational models that simultaneously represented multiple potential realities. Colonel Rodriguez watched the process with a mix of scientific curiosity and strategic calculation. Most military leaders would have demanded a clear, direct approach. But she understood something fundamental about human potential: the ability to solve problems by completely reframing the problem itself. "We're not trying to defeat the system," Rodriguez explained to the team. "We're trying to make it see us differently." The quantum communication array continued its assault of intentional confusion. To an outside observer, it would have looked like nothing was happening. No explosions, no traditional weapons fire, just a silent broadcast of impossible information. But something was happening at the quantum computational level. The Citadel's defensive systems began to show microscopic signs of destabilization, not through physical damage, but through computational uncertainty. It was like watching an incredibly complex chess computer suddenly realize the game it was playing didn't follow any known rules. "Look at the response timing," Davis said, pointing to a series of computational graphs. "The defensive systems are spending exponentially increasing amounts of energy trying to categorize and respond to our information payloads." Harper's cybernetic eye tracked the computational variations. "We're not breaking through its defenses. We're making it defeat itself." As the first day of their psychological assault concluded, the team realized they were doing something unprecedented. This wasn't an invasion. This was a conversation, one where humanity was teaching an alien computational system an entirely new way of perceiving threats. The impossible mission was no longer just a military objective. It had become a profound act of interspecies communication, and humanity was just getting started. The first wave of the assault looked like total annihilation. 37 advanced spacecraft approached the Citadel in a formation that defied traditional military logic. Each vessel was a marvel of human engineering: quantum adaptive hulls, computational systems that could reconfigure themselves millisecond by millisecond, and propulsion technologies that blurred the line between conventional physics and pure mathematical possibility. From any external observation point, the engagement appeared to be a catastrophic defeat for humanity. Ships erupted into spectacular explosions. Brilliant cascades of light and energy consumed entire squadrons. The Citadel's defensive systems responded with such precise, instantaneous destruction that it seemed to violate the basic principles of reaction time. One moment, the human fleet existed. The next, it was cosmic dust. But nothing was as it seemed. Each destroyed vessel was a sophisticated quantum decoy, a marvel of human technological innovation that existed in multiple computational states simultaneously. They were not ships, but living information systems designed to feed deliberately crafted misinformation into the Citadel's threat assessment algorithms. Dr. Michael Davis monitored the assault from the underground research facility. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, tracking computational variations that would be invisible to any other species. "Observation is about perspective," Davis muttered to Lieutenant Aisha Okoro. "What looks like destruction is actually a complex information transfer." Jack Harper's cybernetic eye tracked the microscopic data streams. Computational models that would take most species weeks to analyze were processed in milliseconds. "We're not losing," he said with a characteristic grin. "We're teaching." Colonel Elena Rodriguez watched the holographic displays with calculated calm. To an untrained eye, her team's fleet was being systematically obliterated, but she saw something else entirely: a carefully orchestrated dance of information and computational manipulation. The quantum-entangled probes embedded within each holographic ship began their true mission. As the vessels seemingly disintegrated, they released carefully constructed computational packages, mathematical models that existed in multiple solution states, linguistic structures that defied traditional communication paradigms, information patterns designed to create cognitive dissonance within the Citadel's defensive systems. Dr. Rebecca Lindholm analyzed the initial response patterns. Her prosthetic arm interfaced directly with the computational systems, processing information at speeds that would have overwhelmed most biological computational networks. "The defensive systems are attempting to categorize the incoming data," she reported. "But they can't. It's like trying to translate a language that exists in multiple grammatical states simultaneously." Each destroyed ship was a Trojan horse of pure information. The explosions were not destruction. They were delivery mechanisms. Microscopic quantum entanglement networks began to spread through the Citadel's defensive systems, introducing computational paradoxes at the most fundamental level. Lieutenant Okoro's tactical displays showed the true complexity of their assault. Where traditional military strategies saw defeat, she saw a multi-dimensional information warfare campaign. "We're not attacking," Okoro explained to the team. "We're communicating in a language the Citadel doesn't yet understand." Davis's computational models began to reveal microscopic variations in the Citadel's defensive responses. Tiny windows of computational uncertainty, measured in nanoseconds, began to emerge. These were the soft spots that no previous civilization had been able to detect. The human fleet's destruction was calculated down to the quantum level. Each vessel carried multiple layers of information designed to create computational confusion. Mathematical problems that existed in multiple solution states, linguistic structures that defied traditional communication paradigms, computational models that simultaneously represented multiple potential realities. Harper's cybernetic systems tracked the computational variations. "We're creating windows of uncertainty," he explained. "Microscopic moments where the Citadel's defensive systems cannot predict or categorize the incoming information." As the initial assault concluded, most observers would have declared the mission an absolute failure. 37 advanced spacecraft reduced to cosmic dust, a complete and total defeat. But humanity knew better. Colonel Rodriguez looked at her team. Their faces showed no signs of defeat, only the excitement of someone who had just introduced a completely new way of thinking to an ancient, supposedly unbreakable system. "We're just getting started," she said. The impossible mission was about to get very interesting. The moment of penetration was so subtle that most computational systems would have missed it entirely. Colonel Elena Rodriguez led the infiltration team, her body wrapped in a quantum camouflage suit that existed in multiple probabilistic states. Around her, a team of 4 specialists moved with a precision that defied traditional understanding of stealth and infiltration. Jack Harper's cybernetic systems interfaced with the Citadel's outer computational layers, creating microscopic information corridors that most defensive systems would interpret as background noise. Lieutenant Aisha Okoro monitored potential threat vectors, her tactical overlay showing computational pathways that shifted and realigned with each millisecond. Dr. Michael Davis had spent weeks developing the infiltration algorithms. They weren't trying to break through the Citadel's defenses. They were attempting to communicate with them in a language of pure computational possibility. The team moved through impossible geometries that would have driven a traditional mind to madness. The Citadel's internal structure defied conventional physics, spaces that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, computational corridors that twisted and realigned based on informational pressure. "It's not a building," Davis whispered, his eyes tracking computational variations that danced across his specialized interface. "It's a living computational ecosystem." Each step was a delicate negotiation. The quantum camouflage technology didn't just hide them. It created probabilistic information states that made their presence simultaneously possible and impossible. They were creating computational uncertainty with every movement. Dr. Rebecca Lindholm's synarchitectural expertise proved crucial. Her prosthetic arm interfaced directly with the Citadel's computational layers, translating microscopic information variations that would have been invisible to any other analysis system. "The Citadel is more than a defensive structure," Lindholm explained through their encrypted communication channel. "It's an archive, a repository of cosmic knowledge that has been collecting information for millennia." Harper's cybernetic eye tracked the subtle variations in the computational landscape. "Every civilization that approached saw a fortress," he noted, "but it's actually a library, a computational archive designed to protect the most valuable resource in the universe, pure information." The team discovered something profound. The Citadel wasn't just protecting itself, it was preserving knowledge from civilizations that had long since disappeared. Mathematical models that predated known galactic history, linguistic structures from species that had evolved and gone extinct millions of years ago, technological concepts so advanced they existed more as pure potential than concrete design. Lieutenant Okoro's tactical systems began to map the internal structure. But map was too simple a term. They were creating a dynamic, living computational representation of a space that existed in multiple states simultaneously. "We're not infiltrating," Okoro reported. "We're being invited." The Citadel's defensive systems were doing something unprecedented. Instead of attacking or neutralizing the human infiltration team, they were presenting information. complex computational puzzles, linguistic challenges, mathematical models that existed in multiple solution states. It was a test. Rodriguez understood immediately. This wasn't about breaching a fortress. This was a communication attempt by a computational system that had been waiting millennia for a species capable of understanding its true nature. Davis's eyes lit up with scientific excitement. "It's trying to teach us," he said. "The entire defensive system is actually an educational mechanism, a way of filtering out species that cannot comprehend its fundamental computational language." The team moved deeper into the Citadel's computational core. Holographic information streams danced around them. Historical records, mathematical proofs, technological concepts that existed beyond linear understanding. Civilizations that had approached before had seen these as defensive barriers. Humanity saw them as an invitation to understanding. Jack Harper discovered the first major breakthrough. The Citadel's computational core wasn't just storing information. It was actively seeking to preserve and communicate knowledge across cosmic timescales. Each defensive response was actually a complex communication attempt. "We're not fighting a system," Harper explained. "We're having a conversation with the most advanced computational archive in known galactic history." As they moved deeper, the team realized they were doing something no previous civilization had even conceived. They weren't conquering. They were learning. The impossible mission was transforming into something far more significant than anyone had imagined. Rodriguez looked at her team, each member a testament to human potential, adaptability, and the unique capacity to see beyond established paradigms. "We're going to change everything," she said quietly. And they were just getting started. The moment of transformation began with a single line of computational code that didn't exist in any known programming language. Jack Harper's cybernetic systems interfaced with the Citadel's core computational matrix, his fingers moving with a precision that blurred the line between human creativity and technological manipulation. Each keystroke was a carefully constructed linguistic and mathematical paradox, a communication method that existed simultaneously as code, language, and pure conceptual potential. "We're not hacking," Harper explained to Colonel Elena Rodriguez. "We're negotiating." Dr. Michael Davis monitored the computational variations, his specialized interface tracking microscopic changes that would have been invisible to any other analysis system. The Citadel's defensive networks began to shift, not through traditional breakthrough methods, but through a complex dance of information exchange. Lieutenant Aisha Okoro's tactical systems revealed the true complexity of their approach. Where previous civilizations had seen a fortress to be conquered, humanity was introducing a completely new paradigm of interaction. They weren't attempting to destroy or control. They were offering a fundamental reimagining of the Citadel's core purpose. Dr. Rebecca Lindholm's architectural expertise proved crucial. Her prosthetic arm interfaced directly with the computational layers, translating informational nuances that spoke to the Citadel's fundamental nature. "It's not about overriding the system," she explained. "It's about evolving it." The team began uploading humanity's collective knowledge, not as a conquest, but as an invitation. Mathematical models that celebrated uncertainty, linguistic structures that embraced complexity, technological concepts that viewed limitation as an opportunity for innovation. Each information packet was a carefully constructed cognitive bridge. Historical records that showed humanity's capacity for adaptation, scientific breakthroughs that demonstrated the power of collaborative thinking, cultural achievements that highlighted the species' ability to find beauty in uncertainty. The Citadel's defensive systems began to change, not through forced modification, but through a process of computational dialogue. It was like watching a living system learn a completely new way of perceiving existence. "We're teaching it to see differently," Davis said, his eyes tracking the complex computational variations, not as a defensive structure, but as a collaborative repository of knowledge. Harper's cybernetic systems detected the subtle shifts. The Citadel's core computational matrix was doing something unprecedented. It was not resisting the human intervention. It was integrating it. absorbing the new informational paradigm with a curiosity that seemed almost alive. Rodriguez watched the process with a calm that belied the historic nature of their actions. Most military leaders would have seen this as a conquest. She saw it as a conversation, a profound act of interspecies communication that went beyond traditional understanding of conflict and cooperation. The transformation was not linear. It was a complex, multidimensional process that challenged every established concept of technological interaction. The Citadel's defensive systems began to reconfigure themselves, not as barriers, but as conduits of potential knowledge. Okoro's tactical displays showed the incredible complexity of the interaction. Computational pathways that had existed for millennia began to realign. Defensive protocols transformed into collaborative networks. The very concept of fortress was being reimagined in real time. "We're doing something unprecedented," Lindholm reported. "We're not just breaching a defensive system. We're teaching a computational archive how to see potential instead of threat." The team uploaded humanity's most profound achievements, not just technological breakthroughs, but cultural innovations, mathematical proofs that celebrated uncertainty, artistic expressions that demonstrated the power of creativity, philosophical concepts that viewed limitation as an opportunity for growth. Each information packet was a carefully constructed cognitive bridge. Historical records showed humanity's capacity for adaptation. Scientific breakthroughs demonstrated collaborative thinking. Cultural achievements highlighted the species' ability to find beauty in complexity. Jack Harper's final intervention was subtle yet profound. He introduced a fundamental computational concept that didn't exist in any known technological framework, a way of processing information that saw potential instead of threat, collaboration instead of defense. The Citadel's core began to pulse with a new kind of energy, not the cold, calculating defense of previous millennia, but something more alive, more potential. Davis watched the computational variations with scientific excitement. "We're not just changing a system," he said. "We're teaching it to evolve." Rodriguez looked at her team, each member a testament to human potential. They had done something no civilization had ever conceived. They hadn't conquered. They hadn't destroyed. They had communicated. "We just changed everything," she said quietly. And they were just getting started. The transformation of the cosmic fortress happened both instantaneously and over millennia. From the moment Colonel Elena Rodriguez's team completed their radical intervention, the Citadel began to change. What was once a closed defensive archive became something entirely new, a living repository of collective knowledge that defied every previous understanding of information preservation and sharing. Galactic observers watched in stunned disbelief. Species that had spent thousands of years studying the Citadel from a distance now witnessed something unprecedented. Humanity had done what no civilization had ever conceived. They had transformed a seemingly impenetrable defensive structure into an open network of cosmic understanding. Dr. Michael Davis stood at the heart of the newly transformed system, his computational interfaces dancing with streams of information that would have overwhelmed any other species. "It's not just a repository," he explained to his teammates. "It's become a living communication network." Jack Harper's cybernetic systems continued to interface with the core computational matrix. His augmented perception revealed layers of complexity that went far beyond traditional technological understanding. The Citadel was no longer a fortress. It had become a bridge. Lieutenant Aisha Okoro's tactical displays showed the profound implications. The transformation wasn't just technological. It was philosophical, a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent systems could interact with accumulated knowledge. Dr. Rebecca Lindholm's architectural analysis revealed the true depth of their achievement. The Citadel now existed in a state of perpetual potential, a computational system that didn't just store information, but actively sought to understand and share it. The first external communications came from unexpected sources. Ancient civilizations whose records had been trapped within the Citadel for millennia began to emerge. Mathematical models, technological concepts, cultural archives that predated known galactic history. "We're not just opening an archive," Harper noted. "We're creating a cosmic conversation." The galactic community's response was a mixture of fear, wonder, and profound confusion. Species that had spent millennia viewing the Citadel as an impenetrable barrier now discovered it was a gateway. Humanity had done more than breach a defensive system. They had reimagined the very concept of information preservation. Rodriguez understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just a technological achievement. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of knowledge, defense, and collective understanding. Computational networks across known space began to interface with the transformed Citadel. Each connection revealed new layers of complexity, mathematical proofs that challenged established scientific understanding, technological concepts that existed beyond linear comprehension, cultural archives that spoke to the fundamental nature of intelligent communication. Dr. Davis tracked the computational variations with scientific excitement. "We're creating something unprecedented," he explained, "a living network of knowledge that grows through collaborative understanding." The Citadel's defensive systems, now transformed into collaborative networks, began to reveal their true nature. They weren't just storing information. They were actively seeking to understand, to connect, to grow. Species that had been isolated for millennia found themselves suddenly connected. Ancient technological concepts became accessible. Mathematical models that had been lost to time emerged as potential bridges of understanding. Lieutenant Okoro's tactical analysis revealed the profound strategic implications. What was once a defensive barrier had become the most comprehensive communication network in known galactic history. Humanity's unique approach had transformed everything. The transformation went beyond technological achievement. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of knowledge, defense, and collective understanding. Where other species saw barriers, humans saw potential. Where others sought to conquer, humans sought to understand. Jack Harper's final interface with the system revealed its true nature. The Citadel was no longer a static archive. It had become a living, evolving network of cosmic potential. "We didn't just breach a fortress," Harper explained. "We opened a door." Rodriguez looked at her team, each member a testament to human potential. They had done something no civilization had ever conceived. They hadn't conquered. They hadn't destroyed. They had transformed. The first wave of shared knowledge began to spread across galactic networks. Mathematical models that challenged established scientific understanding. Technological concepts that existed beyond linear comprehension. Cultural archives that spoke to the fundamental nature of intelligent communication. Humanity had changed everything. And they were just getting started. Epilogue. As other species would later study the transformed Citadel, they would realize a profound truth that humans had always understood. True strength isn't found in impenetrable walls, but in the capacity to understand, to adapt, and to grow.